This is Chair. I'm your host Nemanja. And let's first go back to our previous week episode with Bane from Publicis Group.
Marcel is collecting total experience of more than 100,000 people around the world, different cultures, different philosophies, different skills and knowledge. So we pack this platform in the cloud. So you can imagine the potential of having like 100 people in one place with all of the materials, training materials, case studies. For the advertising industry, for sure, the future is shifting from holding companies to the platforms. That's for sure. The whole industry will change because we are in the times where we have a lot of data. So basically now you have this data-driven creativity. For the first time in the history of advertising, we will be able to measure the success of the campaigns.
This is Chair, place where we discuss innovations. When you're leading your team through digital transformation, it's all too easy to get it wrong. But there is some examples how you can get it right, or to be precise, be in position to get it right. And one of these examples is building startups in the huge companies rather than building departments. So on this subject, I have a great pleasure to talk with Jelena Medojevic, digital lead for Southeast Europe in Philip Morris. Jelena is experienced senior manager responsible for creating, leading, and measuring the implementation of digital marketing strategy, from strategic development through consumer and digital brand experience to revenue and profit growth of the e-commerce channels. So Jelena, welcome to Chair. Pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So we are going to talk about entrepreneurship and building startups inside the larger international organizations such as Philip Morris is. You're leading digital department that it's not a department. Basically, it's a startup at its best. How this happened in the first place?
Well, Philip Morris has embarked on a transformational journey itself. So the company is changing as we speak with a range of heat-not-burn products and the new technologies that we are bringing to the market. So this innovation that we are bringing also means we need to innovate in the way we talk to our consumers. And this is where digital comes in. So the role of digital as such is really to be an innovator, but also we are working, from a place of a startup. It's a completely new term in this placed company as Philip Morris, and it's really something completely new. So this is why we really look at ourselves as kind of innovators and a bit of a, startup-like thinking, because our role is not just to, talk to our consumers via digital, educate them, but also to educate the whole company. We are the ones who need to lead the path towards the transformation and really enable PMI as such to reach the consumers with the right messages about the new technology on the market.
So since you're operating as a startup, as we already established, can you share with me your internal organization? And in addition to that, how you are influencing bureaucracy from within?
Yeah, so digital, as I said, is really something new for Philip Morris as such. And we have been, we brought a lot of people from the outside who were there to, change a bit the culture and the way we do things. Digital is all about being real time, reaching the consumers at the right time with the right message. And in order to do this, you have to be agile. So you have to fight kind of this bureaucracy and the old ways of getting things done. We have been set up as an independent team. And when you're working in a corporation like this, it's you have to understand that, how we think and we operate is always looked upon like, we are bringing something new to the table. And I see our role really as an educators of the whole company, bringing them closer to digital, but also, enabling to enabling our consumers to learn more through digital. So when it comes to fighting bureaucracy, I wouldn't say it's about fighting, because there are also good things about being a part of a startup in a big organization, but it's more about actively changing the way things are done every day. So this is not something that happens overnight. Every day through what we do, it takes a lot of energy sometimes, and people sometimes can get frustrated with it, but it's important that we actively work together to change the old mindset. This is how we do things and it works so far, so let's not deal with that right now. So really I see my team as innovators on this field as well. So not just about bringing the digital know-how, but also getting the whole company to be more agile, if I can say so.
You mentioned agile a couple of times. It's important for the startups, and I will come to that later. But first, since you told me that you brought new people to the team, I would like to ask you how you empowering them to be more entrepreneurial, to be more startup minded, because they are working in the huge corporation, but you're expecting from them to be startup minded.
Well, for me, it's really about transparency and empowerment. So it's about being able to communicate very openly with the team, to really share all the impediments that we're facing together, to make sure we're all on the same level, we understand what is happening. But it's also about empowering them to do the things they are brought to do, because as I said, digital is really something new for us as a company, and these people are here for a reason. They're here, this team is here to really move the needle, shift things forward. And the only way we can succeed is if we take the whole company with us. We cannot. We cannot operate like we're a startup and not pay too much attention about what's happening around us. So from my perspective, it's really about making sure that my team can perform and enabling them to be heard, to have their voice heard, to test, to try, to learn, fail sometimes, but really being able to communicate to the rest of the organization why this is so important and where it is leading us. So this is, how I see my role. And as I said, I think really the crucial things are really open communication and empowerment.
And you told me about the failing sometimes, and that's a part of the startup life, but it's not a part of the corporative culture. How you're dealing with that to share the message that failing is all right?
Well, I think we've done a really, really good job, and this is not just my team, but really the company as such has incorporated this kind of fast-forward thinking. We have learned that instead of going big and maybe failing big, it's really great to be able to test things. So more and more we are choosing smaller consumer bases, doing a lot of experiments, and then based on that extrapolating results and thinking how we actually scale it up. So I would say this mindset is already there, but of course digital always goes one step further. We are pushing the boundaries a little bit, and maybe bringing them some of the colleagues into some place where they don't feel too comfortable, which is okay. I think it's just one way to learn and grow, because if you don't try, you don't succeed. Yeah. And you have to fail at some point and sometimes, but we are doing it in a way that it's not a full scale, but rather doing it smartly with smaller numbers, and really just checking the hypothesis as we go. So I would say this really is working out very well for us so far.
Yeah, you partly answered my next question regarding the innovation itself. So I want to know how you guys innovate. Can you share with me your innovation process itself?
Well, for us, as I said, we have this advantage of kind of being a startup within a company, and I would say it's a bit of an advantage that we are free to brainstorm and think of whatever we want to do, because
and you have a budget. So
yes, well, being part of a big organization is has its advantages. As I said, it has a certain disadvantages, but it's never a perfect situation, obviously. But we are perceived as someone who can bring this innovation forward. As I said, we have a very innovative technology in place, developed for many years, and a range of products based on this technology. So it's only natural that digital, is the channel, how to spread the story about it. So it is actually very much expected that we come with all this. Oh, now here are the digital guys. They're gonna come up now with something completely different, and we get this, very often. Okay, so let us hear what you have to say now. So I would say we have an open ear in the organization to bring forward on the table ideas. Okay, of course, not all of them pass, and this is completely normal. But looking at it from the innovation perspective, I'm very happy that we have this support and kind of a green light. Just bring it, put it on the table, and then let's see how we can roll it forward. In the light of this, we have just launched like a first ever PMI market, an IQOS virtual store, like a new consumer concept, which is focused on reaching our consumers in the digital sphere and really educating them and providing all the needed information about our range of heat-not-burn products and the technology behind it. So I'm really proud to be, Serbia being one of the first markets in PMI globally to launch this concept.
So you mentioned earlier agility and how it's important, and of course we are speaking again from a startup perspective, but I want to hear your opinion regarding agility in large corporations. How hard is it, and is it achievable at all?
It's very hard, but it is achievable. I really have quite a bit of an experience with agile transformations up to now, and what I can tell you is that there's no one model that fits all. I think I have several takeaways that I can share, but basically every change, every transformation starts from top down. And it's very crucial to get, first of all, the understanding and then the backup of the top management in any kind of, agile transformation as such. This is, I think, the first step. It can never be led bottom up. It simply does not work. The other thing is that companies very often try to overnight become agile. We have this structure today, and from tomorrow it's going to work like this. This does not work, of course. What I've seen so far is that if you really try to take on the whole organization and really do this big shift, it does not work. Or it will take really a lot of time until it does work. It's always better to start small and then go big. So maybe just like with anything when it comes to innovation, right? Prove the value based on a smaller sample and then scale it up. So this is how I see agility as well. The right approach really would be to start, with a certain project, a smaller team that can actually really work and deliver under agile.
And prove that it's doable, right?
Exactly, and prove that it's doable, because this is how you also get the buy-in from the rest of the organization. You have to understand that when you try to transform big organization, you always have certain streams that will never be, agile enough. I don't know, accounting, procurement. There are certain things that just have to be done, and there's no way around it. And when you're in a big organization, there's certainly no way around it. As a startup, you can even play because you build agility into the organization from the very beginning, right? But when you try to do it in a very mature organization, it does not work. So you have to be also aware that you have to find a model that's somewhere in between. So that you have to adjust actually agile methodology for your own needs and then scale it up and run it throughout the organization.
So you have, while we're still on the subject of agility, you have a big experience before Philip Morris in telco industry. You work in one huge international corporation that is working in telco industry. What are the differences between agility in different industries? Maybe on this example that where you're working now and where you worked before.
Well, it's not about the industry. It's about the readiness of the organization to shift towards agile and how they see it's feasible for them. As I said, there's no one model that can fit all of the organization. And what is really the key that I saw is bringing on the right talent. People that can drive the change and drive the education, because agility is about doing things differently. It's not about doing new things that will come as a byproduct, but it's about doing things differently. So it really requires a mindset shift in the organization. And I've seen a lot of different approaches, from trying to do it to shift the whole organization, from trying to do it in smaller teams and educate maybe a smaller group of people that can then show the value of working in agile setting to the entire organization. So where I see that the difference is not just between my organizations, but overall is really how you decide to tackle it and how to approach it. But at the end, the result should be the same. Realizing how you can implement and adapt agile methodology to work in your own company. I think I mentioned it, no company is the same and our starting points are different. When you are a startup, it's much easier, obviously. But the key is really for each organization to do a really good sanity check, where are we and what we are trying to do, because certain things are working as is. I said waterfall can be a very effective methodology for certain things, and it should not be replaced, and agile should not be just plugged into everything. We really need to see where does it adds value. Digital is certainly one of the areas where you have to be agile, because we are the ones that can react to consumer needs, changes in the market the fastest, and we really need to be agile. Also, our agencies need to be agile, execution needs to be agile. That's it. But some other areas of the company can work perfectly fine in the waterfall method, and this is the learnings that I can really share here is that be careful when you assess your readiness. First of all, how much of education do you really need to shift the organization towards agile? Don't underestimate it, because it's really a huge factor. People are used to getting things done in a certain way, and it does take really quite a long time to educate them and change their behavior and ensure you really have the right talent to do so. It's really about the people who are bringing about the change. So this is where you need to be careful to really onboard the right talent to lead such a transformation.
I always like to finish with the future questions, and I think we probed enough your internal startup. So I want to ask you a bit broader question. I want to hear from you. What is your vision? What will internal startups will bring in the future for organization? What challenges and what wins can be expected from the internal startups?
Well, you cannot fight in today's marketplace without being an innovator in one way or the other. And the only way to innovate is really to have this kind of a startup culture. Old ways of doing things are simply not bringing results anymore. So I really see that in the future, big organizations will more and more rely on startups, whether that is, creating a small startup within the company, putting dedicated resources to work on a certain product or a line of products in a startup way, or partnering, looking for small companies, that can bring the technology and the product needed to plug it into the big system. Or working, for example, on boosting the entrepreneurship spirit within its own company, like, a lot of companies are doing it at challenges, entrepreneurship challenges, innovation challenges, etc. Looking for the people within the company who have great ideas that can be then, brought forward. So I think there are going to be a lot of models for sure, but it's going to become more and more prominent going forward. We cannot expect that that innovation will come, from how we do things or how we used to do it in the past. And we, looking at also from the cost perspective, many organizations are looking to partner up with, startups who have kind of an MVP product that they can then shape towards their own needs rather than develop everything in-house from the scratch. So I think this also really goes with agility as well, because, startups are the ones who can react much faster to whatever the market is bringing, whatever the consumer needs are. And this is where I think the big corporations are going to, rely more and more and partner more and more with outsiders, to deliver the value to their own consumers.
Jelena, thank you so much for your insights. And for you out there, if you enjoyed, subscribe and see you next Thursday when we talk about some other innovations.
Thank you for having me.